This next story is about money to help with the homeless problem, but it's also kind of about the dysfunctional communication going on between the top leaders. First, some background. This week, Governor Tina Kotek announced that she is ready to send out millions of dollars to areas that fall under her homelessness state of emergency. It's part of the plan she's been talking about that includes getting at least 1,200 people off the streets and opening 600 more shelter beds by the end of the year. The legislature recently approved $85 million for those plans. The goal for that money is to be able to have it available at the end of this month. The areas getting some of that money include Multnomah, Washington, Lane, Jackson, Polk, and Clackamas County, along with Central Oregon. Now, lawmakers also approved $26 million for the rural and coastal areas not included in that state of emergency. Multnomah County, where more than 5,000 people are experiencing homelessness, is slated to get the most money, $18 million. It would be used to move 275 people off the streets and open 138 shelter beds. But Governor Kotek wants specific details on how that money is going to be spent, something she says she is not getting. She's blaming it on a lack of collaboration between the city and the county.
In the case of Multnomah County and City of Portland, I'll be honest, I was disappointed that they didn't have more clarity. I've sat through several meetings about trying to understand existing capacity, who's paying for what, where does the money come from, what's the city committed to, what's the county committed to. They need to get their stuff together. I've been very clear they need to sit down and give us a few more details before we can release the money.
Remote question?
But the governor's comments this week contradict something we heard from Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler just last week.
I can tell you that the relationship between the city and the county around homeless services is better than it has ever been.
Well, okay, that's a little troubling, don't you think? The mayor says things have never been better. The governor is saying things have never been more dysfunctional. This week, Wheeler's office told us they're looking forward to reviewing the governor's input and will work with the county to update their plan. The city of Portland and Multnomah County have until April 28th to revise their plan in order to get that $18 million. And it's worth noting the governor said the money cannot go towards funding any tents. So we'll see what the city and county can come up with. But I have to say, it is refreshing, I think, that the governor is keeping a campaign promise on accountability, especially when we're talking about tens of millions of taxpayer dollars.
We're not just handing out money without specific outcomes. We need to know how it's going to be spent and have confidence that they will hit those goals.
Yeah. Kind of like the sound of that. We also wanted to touch again briefly on Oregon's kicker loss, and so many of you have responded to our stories each time we've done them in the past few days. It really has been overwhelming. And by the way, if you've missed our kicker coverage, no, we're not going to go into it all over again. But yes, you can catch up on it by going to our KGW YouTube channel. Today, Laurel Porter asked Governor Kotek for her thoughts on the kicker and the very slim chance that lawmakers try to use some of that money for state projects.
I am not focused on touching the kicker, and I don't think legislators are really set to do that. What I'm focusing on are the reserves that we could tap into. We have $2 billion in reserves here in the state. That is a good place to be when, we're always up and down about whether there's a recession coming. But what I put in my budget was, let's, instead of sending $400 to $500 million more dollars into reserves, let's hold that back, use those one-time dollars for things that we need. That is a much more current conversation on what's going to happen. There's nothing happening with the kickers.
But what if it does?
Well, I just don't see there's political will to do that. I'm very practical. I'm focused on, we can do a balanced budget that invests in the things we need if we don't spend every penny back to reserves.
But the heads of the Ways and Means Committee disagree. We've already talked to them about that. Now, for lawmakers to raid the kicker fund to use for projects, it would require a 2/3 majority vote in both chambers. And with the current makeup of the legislature, very unlikely that's going to happen. In fact, my sources tell me, frankly, it's not going to happen. The kicker will go back to taxpayers. And there you have the governor saying the very same thing. But just how much the taxpayer is still going to get, that's a little unclear. The surplus looks like it's going to be around $4 billion. And if past bienniums are any indication, a surplus like that could mean an average of, a couple $1,000s per taxpayers. Now, listen, people who pay more taxes are going to get more money back. People who pay less will get less back. That's the way the system works. Meanwhile, your comments from last night run the gamut of possibilities. There are those who are like Todd, who want the kicker money back. Todd writes, Oregon's kicker provides a modicum of control on runaway taxation. We probably all know people who say that when they retire, they're going to leave Oregon because its tax rates are too high. Keep the kicker. I think he means keep the kicker going and coming to taxpayers. It seems to be the only break that we have on onerous taxation. While viewers like Lowe want the money used for state projects. Writing, Oregonians are going to pay for infrastructure and programs one way or another. I say, let the state keep the kicker money for projects and quit passing new taxes and/or assessments. Rob writes in to say the kicker is crazy. Oregon could use the money for lots of worthwhile things like public defenders. Those calling it my money are nuts. When you spend money at Fred Meyer, it's no longer yours. Same with your taxes. It's no longer yours, it's the state's. Thank you all for your comments.